and all, welcome back to Factorio Space Age. We now begin the age of the mass production of ships. This is basically how you break the game. Some would say that this is a power play that I'm doing here. Others may say that I'm a bit of a douche lord. Both would be correct. This is really the kind of end game content that everyone sort of wants to see and do, is look at all these rocket silos, look at how mass producing using a mega base can supply these ships. Everything basically being built is mostly legendary. Everything is mostly. It's a thing, and basically look at that. That's satisfying. That's like peeling the cover off your phone the first time, or you've got a brand new television and you take the little film wrapper off the front of it. Almost sexual, almost. Anyway, so we have here building two new ships. We need two ships of the line, and they have been named thusly. We have the HMS Rusty Lee. Now, there's a bit of a story behind Rusty Lee. Anyone from Britain born in a certain time will be like, oh, I know Rusty Lee. You, the chef, right? Yes, that's who. So you're now Googling, if you're not from any of those specific scenarios, you're now basically Googling who Rusty Lee is. Rusty Lee was this wonderful cook, basically, on morning TV. And she had this wonderful laugh, and she basically just filled everyone's hearts with joy when she cooked things, because she cooked it and she laughed, and it was wonderful. It was like the ultimate aunt you could ever ask for. And yeah, she was just wonderful. So I saw I don't know what it was, TikTok, I think it was, recently, and it was one of her old cookery shows, and I wanted to commemorate her. So we are naming a giant asteroid farming spaceship after her. I can think of no more fitting a tribute in my mind at all. The other one is called the HMS Rusty Sheriff's Badge, or Rusty Starfish. I can't remember what I called it, but that's just rude. It's just rude. There's no other word for it. It's a euphemism. If you've never... In fact, I'm going to share with you one of the greatest sources of humour that has ever existed. It's called the Viz Profanosaurus. Some of you, again, will be nodding your head and scratching your neckbeards in a very sage way, saying, yes, I'm aware of this publication. Those of you who are not, quick synopsis. Viz is a weird comic in the UK. It's very unusual. It's made for adults, and it's not a child comic. I can reassure you absolutely of that. And the Profanosaurus was always something that made me laugh. I remember almost dying on a train one day, because you could buy this book, and it was basically just a thesaurus. But what it did is it gave you humorous words that then had humorous meanings. Let me give you an example. And it's a bit sexist, so I'm sorry if this offends anyone. I really am, but this just shows, again, maybe times have moved on. But for me, it was always it was always something that you did. So let's just say this can be any gender, but you would something called a borderline boiler. Your eyes say no, but your nuts say go. I know, wrong, right? Totally wrong. But it's kind of funny as well. It's funny, and kind of like watching a pensioner get kicked in the balls with a football. There's something deeply wrong with it, but it's also something just you can't help laughing. Like you see a pensioner fall over in the street. Again, it doesn't have to be a pensioner. You see someone fall over in the street. You can't help but kind of have a little bit of a laugh. Like you're kind of worried about them, but anyway, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just a terrible person. I'll give you another example, and you've got to post in the comments, because this is one. Snookered behind the red, and yet the only pot on is a difficult brown. I say no more. I say no more. Post in the comments if you think you know what that means, and yes, you will be banned if you get it right. No, you won't. Of course you won't. So, Viz Profanosaurus, if you are someone who has a sense of humour and enjoys things that make you laugh, totally worth checking out. Like I say, I almost died because the humour is terrible. It's real base, low humour, but there's something about it that's funny. And I was on a train going to London in a suit. I was looking very presentable. I was earning my paper, as they say. And yet I'm sat literally laughing my head off at this book. And I almost died. Like I literally was almost choking to death. Another incident, actually, I was on a flight going to the United States many years ago, and I basically was watching Borat, Now, I quite like Ali G, but basically I was watching Borat. Again, I almost died. The air hostess had to come over to me and tell me to stop because I was basically so obviously about to die trying to suppress laughter. And when you try and suppress laughter, you can't help but make it worse. Anyway, enough of this flim flam jibber jabber wish wash. What are we doing in the game? So we're producing 2 new ships, basically because we now have an issue where legendary iron is running a bit low. So we need a couple more asteroid scrapers, as I like to think of them, to sort things out. So off camera, we've done a huge amount of stuff just because I didn't want to kind of just show you it because there's no point, it's boring stuff. We managed to get Snowflake Base to Aquilo orbit, just left it, farming asteroids in the inner solar system, made enough missiles. It now lives quite happily in Aquilo orbit, and it's doing a wonderful job. I then realized that actually our science doesn't work. So you remember that lovely city block science blueprint that I shared with you all? Yeah, it doesn't work. What you have to do is where the trains unload the science, make sure that they're bulk unloaders. That's all. That's the only change. I probably should do like a press revision of it. Maybe I'll do that next video. But with that, you then basically get about 30,000 science running, which runs pretty continually. However, the issue is that Gleba science was woefully inadequate. So I actually spent an evening hiding from my friends and family in my office upstairs, and I could hear all kind of party and ruckus and laughter and joy and social interactivity happening beneath me, and all I was thinking was how repelled I was by this. So I basically went and hid in my office. I just said I had some work and emails to do. Absolute lie. I did it to hide from everyone who knows me. And what I did is I basically sat and I went to Gleba and I balanced it. I actually spent some time working out what's being grown, what's being produced, how much science are we using, because again, the worst thing you can do is overproduce Gleba science because it goes off. So, long story short, spent a lot of time balancing it, making it work, giving the system an ability to just channel directly into a silo. Lots of stuff. We'll look at it another time, but I didn't record it. But it's one of those things where you sort of, you chase the bottleneck. This is the premise of this entire game, is you try and figure out where's the bottleneck in my production. And with Gleba Science, it was the pentapod eggs. So all I had to do was basically double them up, put better modules in them, and really just balance them then with the science being produced. And so far we have now got to a point where Gleba science is no longer the, let's say, the problem. The issue is actually Aquilo science now. We're not producing enough Aquilo science, but we'll go and fix that in a video to come soon. Also sorted out Strangely Beige's circuitry, because it was not working correctly. It would get to a point where it would get to 18,000 Promethean rocks and then bugger off again towards the deep space, the shattered planet, which is not what we wanted. So a little bit of work there, just put in another circuit condition saying, I think it was if Prometheum equals 0, then M equals 1, and then you just set the circuit condition on Strangely Beige. I may even show it at the end of this video. I can't remember if we include it, but there you go. Nothing interesting. This was one of the great things of this sort of game, is that I can basically hide in my room and get away from people because people suck. That's not true. I should not purvey that kind of isolationist attitude, but there we go. A lot of what I think is going on in the game at the moment as well surprises me greatly, because I think to myself, there must be a time when I'm just going to be like, right, it's time for a new save. But then some wonderful new project starts, like building all of those new silos. Wonderful fun. Found out here, for example, we have a slight issue. Again, another example of bottlenecks. We built these with fusion reactors because obviously we're going to use the best tech we've got. And what I found was actually the issue is we have a ship, a supply ship that runs from Aquilo to Nauvis. But what it's doing is it's basically picking up things on the route, and it's a slow ship. So I think we maybe even need to build another sort of Strangely Beige to take over that kind of bird. In fact, that might be quite fun. The second Strangely Beige, one doing the Shattered Planet, the other doing Aquilo. I like the sound of that. But these things basically are here to just trawl and get a load more iron, legendary iron. That's basically all we need them to do. And the issue obviously always with them is that as we scale up. So we've now got red and green legendary science. I started to plan out blue legendary science and saw very quickly I'm going to struggle to produce, well, red circuits really, but at this particular stage it feels like legendary iron is absolutely at its limit. So building not just one but 2 new ships seems the most logical thing to do. I think I'm going to build another 2 as well once these 2 are gone, because it's okay to have a whole kind of raft of stuff in space. That's our Gleba balancing, just so you can see it. A little bit of work we did there just to kind of build a bit of an easier, I guess it was just a direct load. You see the Gleba science is being loaded into one silo, but also when needed it can go into the silos and be sent by the main group of silos. All very rigorously interesting stuff, but it does cause this issue here where we do really kind of need to be a bit careful that we don't clog up, because these are pentapod eggs. You don't want to mess about with them, and there's an awful lot of them. So as you can see, this has been a fair bit of work, but really just balancing it to work. I actually would have thought that deep space science would have been by far the hardest science to do, but I think I've just got that strangely beige is working brilliantly. It just produces an amazing amount of science as well. So I think so far, I'm really struggling with the Aquilo science. So I think that's what we'll go and do at some point next. This design here, which is my type B hexagon, is designed to go to Aquilo because it's got the rocket launchers on it. It's not very efficient, so I think it needs a bit of love. It's not like Strangely Beige, which to me is still the go anywhere, do anything ship. I guess really I should just turn all of my Aquilo ships into a version of Strangely Beige. Maybe that's what we do, but it feels just shame, because it would be nice to have an interim ship between kind of that one and this, because this is so, I mean, maybe the way to think of it is we take the engines off the back. Yeah, maybe we do that, but anyway, I digress. So I would say at the moment it's been an incredible kind of blast getting that science up to 30,000 science per minute. I think that's pretty good for me. What we're going to do though is we're going to go and basically double that. So we're going to take another city block and build another set of science, and then have another set of trains. So every train stop effectively will have science, legendary red science for example, will have 2 trains going to it. So this is going to really double up the demand on resources, but I think we can do it, because the reality of it is that if we take, let's say, a number of the science, here we go, we managed to get Snowflake Base over to Aquilo. Uneventful, so I didn't include anything. It's just that there it is, it's there, it made it. We just have to basically make sure the fusion reactors work. The problem of quality modules, I think, is we never actually have anything basic being produced anymore, which is actually a problem. So a little bit of work to do there. But again, I do like Snowflake Base. I think for me it's one of those wonderful things, but massive problems with its kind of logistics. Like as you can see, it's just got way too it's just stockpiling stuff. And this is the problem with blueprints, because for some reason blueprints don't always capture the circuitry. It might be because I'm not including the initial hub, the center bit there. That's probably what it is. So it's losing the instant connection to the wire there. So I do connect it, but every so often an arm here or there is lost from it. But there we go. So there's been a fair bit of progress, and again, that's one of the best things about my partner who throws get-togethers and parties, is she knows that I'm basically socially inept, even though I'm really not. But I'm just someone that's very much I don't want to be there, I'm going to go and play my computer game. I've been playing Space Marine 2, right? I don't know if you've ever played Space Marine games. They're good, right? If you've played them, you know what I'm talking about. They're really fun. I started playing Space Marine 2 and I got 2 missions in. And then I just had no time to actually go back and enjoy it all, because it's one of those games where you kind of have to shut the door, slam the door, if you will, in the face of people who try to take your time. I call them time bandits, but anyway. And these people, they need to be put in their place. And then you play this game with your headphones on, everything set to maximum, lovely kind of display. You even position your chair correctly, so you can basically get the full kind of, you drink it in, you kind of absorb the Warhammer 40k wonderfulness. And it's one of those games, and I think I really am sort of loath to play it. So every so often when I get like 5 minutes to come and like actually sit at my computer, what I find I do is I would rather put on Factorio, because you can pick it up, you can do something and then put it down. But there's so many brilliant games out that I've bought. I have them on Steam. I have just not played them yet, because they deserve a proper play through. Not all the way, but you need to play them for at least longer than like 20 minutes. It feels like, anyway, there's lots of games like that. And the last one that was like that was Fallout 4. And it's funny really, because that game particularly really changed like everything about like how I appreciate games. Because, you know, Fallout 3 was wonderful, played it, but I was quite young when that came out, or younger, let's say. Fallout 4, when it came out, was just such an event that I wanted to really enjoy it. And so I think I booked time off, and I sat and played it for like 3 days. It was wonderful. Like, I know it's such a waste of annual leave from a heartless global megacorp, but I thought it was well spent. And when I went back, you know, they ask you, they do the obvious things, you know, people you work with, they go, oh, how was your holiday? And you know, the only thing I could say was amazing, because it was just great. And I didn't mind Fallout 4. I know a lot of people didn't like, Fallout 76. I quite liked it. I actually got something from it. I quite enjoyed the game, but I didn't really understand it, and I never got into it as much as I did Fallout 4. And I think it's one of those things, it's very odd. In fact, fun story, and this is a real aside. A long time ago, I had this real kind of, you know, sort of story about gaming is actually good for you. And there's a very sad reason this is, because you may or may not know, but London many years ago was unfortunately bombed. 7/7, it was the July 7th. So it's around this time that I'm doing this video, because again, I do these and then they sit in the YouTube channel bit until they get released. So this is a bit of a commemoration of that, because I was working for British Petroleum at the time, BP. And I was working in their Moorgate office as a bright-eyed, you know, sort of keen and excited project manager. And I was basically staying in London, and I was getting the tube into the office. And it's so weird, because the day of the bombings, I actually had taken the day off, because the new version, the new release of Eve Online was being released on that day. So I actually took the day off to basically sit at home and play the new version of Eve. And then, you know, to think that morning I woke up and the news obviously was on the radio, and it was terrible. And I got called by like our security office, who I didn't even know we had, who were literally going through a list of people that they couldn't find, and I was on that list. And it's frightening to think that, because the tube that was actually bombed probably would have been the one that I'd have got, because it was exactly the same route, exactly the same time that I would leave my hotel and I would basically go into the office. Isn't that crazy? And I've always to this day said that Eve Online saved my life. So there you go. I've never told that story before. To me, that feels like a real odd moment, because I always think people have, it's getting better, but at that time particularly, there was a very negative view of gaming, because it was seen as, kids do that, don't they? That's what Mario Kart is and all that. Which of course is true, but I've always taken the view that gaming by far is one of the most immersive pastimes you can ever have. To me, it's no different to car restoration, which is a wonderful example, because I also do that as well. And that's one of those things where I think to myself, this is a wonderful example of the creativity that you can have. I mean, look at that ship there. I mean, that I created that, and I'm proud of it, and it was something that it's a system. There's a number of things you have to do with it, and I made it work, and off it goes. And sometimes, yeah, they slam into planets and die, but hey, that's the fun of it. You know, I have rebuilt engines, started it up, driven down the road, and the engine is literally exploded on me. So you have to kind of take the rough with the smooth a bit with this. But my view of it is that gaming does get a bit of a bad rap, particularly when it comes to things like violence, particularly when it comes to things like, shootings, unfortunately. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, violent people absorb violent media. It doesn't have anything to do with horror films or computer games. Violent people are violent people, and there's a reason that they are like that. And I think so far the science is saying very clearly it is nothing to do with the games. The games didn't make that person violent. They were already violent through things like abuse, through things like, even just honestly, things like, psychotic problems. So this is why I do get quite, passionate about the kind of gaming is a source for good. And why am I talking about this? I don't know. In the background, we have our two wonderful new ships, the HMS Rusty Lee and the HMS Rusty, what is it? I can see it now. Rusty Starfish, lovely and graphic. Think of that image in your face right now. And they're ready to go. But this is one of the issues with this particular design, is we have to find basically a way to load them with ammo before they set off. Because I've made this mistake before, where I've made these ships and then click go, and they basically have no ammo. So maybe I need to just basically set them with 100 units of ammo in each gun at the front. Maybe it's as simple as that, and that probably is the answer. But post in the comments, let me know your views on this. How would you stop that scenario happening? Because I have to leave them in orbit for what seems like, let's say, 20-30 minutes, so at least they get some ammo built, some fuel made, and so on. So post in the comments, tell me what you think I'm doing wrong there. I did think about a system where you could even send rocket fuel up and then unload it, but I don't know, I don't really want to go down that route. I think it feels like, to me, you build it and then you forget about it for like a day. Then when I come back and play again, they'd have had like an hour in Nauvis orbit. They'll have got enough stuff to get going, and then you just send them to like Gleba or Vulcanus, and then in theory they should have a number of ammo in the gun at the front that means they don't get smashed immediately. However, it has happened, so ironic. But I think this is ready to go, and to be honest, I think at the moment probably the other thing to build is another chimney sweep or Dick Van Dyke, because we've got two of those that are capturing legendary, basically making legendary coal. However, I think we need legendary sulfur as well now, so I'm not entirely sure if we do. I think we do for blue circuits. I will go and check my logic if that's correct, but I think we may have to look at that as well. Plus, this ship is tired. It needs a bit of an update. It may just be that it's not got particularly good gear on it, but this is, as you can see, it's doing everything. So maybe this ship needs to be split into two, and half of its responsibility is given to the other ship. So I think that probably makes sense. But there we go. Post in the comments, let me know what you think. This is kind of the beauty of the end game, is look, to produce a new ship that is pretty much all legendary takes, I would say, probably 10 minutes, not even that, 5 minutes. And I didn't speed this up, so if you want, you can literally time from the start of that video to literally where the ship is done. Forget the fusion reactors, because that was my oversight. I think it's like 8 minutes or 5 to 8 minutes, so it's pretty impressive. And I think this is exactly the way we're going to have to go now, because we need basically an awful lot of legendary stuff to really push forward. And blue, yellow, purple science is going to be a bit of a challenge, I suspect, but let's see. And at the end of the day, it's probably worth it. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you next time.